Hello, everybody, and welcome to What the Hell Should I Watch? We're getting near the end of January, means we're getting into some more sizable movies. We're still not quite there yet. February is going to be more of our kickoff point. There's still stuff to talk about. First things first, thank you for watching the video. If you can, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, just down there. Also, you can give me some comments if you want to give me some feedback, give me some questions, and I will address them on the following video after I get that message. This week, I'm actually going to give you an episode that has better audio because this week I decided to actually speak into my microphone. That's super, super helpful if you want people to hear your opinions on movies and stuff. But let's dig into it. I teased a new action film, The Beekeeper, last week, so let's dig into it this week. All right, so the first movie of the week is David Ayer's new action film, The Beekeeper, starring Jason Statham. Oi. And he does what Statham does best, and he's dispatching bad guys left and right. Something that he's been doing since like the mid 2000s. I want to say that Transporter was like 2004. So like on his own, like leading his own action movies, the guy's done it for a long time. I honestly, going into this one, was really trepidatious because the last thing I saw him in, because I didn't watch Expendables 4 yet, and I've heard it's not good. But the last thing I watched was Meg 2, The Trench, and I was so upset with that film and so upset with the director, Ben Wheatley, that I almost like feel like I should act like that movie doesn't exist because it upset me so much just in its existence. But The Beekeeper is actually a solid action film that from beginning to end, I mean, there's no real exposition or deep drama needed. I mean, you don't even need to set up relationships. All you need to know is his character, Clay, has been living with Felicia Rashad on her farm and gave him a place to stay. And he's been super grateful because nobody's ever given him a place to stay. And immediately she goes back into the house, logs onto her computer, gets one of those firewall warnings, calls the number, they drain her bank account, setting up our action. Because at the center of it, this is my sound of freedom, and it's not an embellishment on child trafficking that may not be real, and a ham-fisted attempt at doing a child trafficking story that we've already seen in Taken. And this time we point Jason Statham like a loaded weapon at scam artists that are preying on elderly and basically the lonely elderly have no one else to look out for them and draining their bank account. So watching him take out these people is actually really, really funny. And it makes you ignore some of the more outlandish and cartoonish parts in it. I mean, your main villain, the guy that's kind of orchestrating everything, is Josh Hutcherson's character, who is 100% doing a Logan Paul impression. Like, this has to be him emulating Logan Paul, and does it pretty well. Like, even the hairstyle is pretty damn close. But there's certain things, like there's a mercenary to bring in near the end of the film. I think he's Australian. His character name is Lazarus in it, and he's missing a limb because he had a close encounter with a beekeeper before. And he is just in his own movie, and it's so distracting that I was like, what was this guy, like a weird addition or something that David Ayer's like, I just really like your look, so I'm just going to throw you in this movie. I also say that something that really kind of bugged me as well, and I expected at a certain point, was there's so many bee puns and things about the hive, and there's even a to be or not to be utterance, and I scoffed in theaters. I just thought that's crossing a line. But David Ayer didn't write this script. It was written by Kurt Wimmer. Kurt has not done great things in the last while. He did a Children of the Corn movie before this. But Kurt Wimmer is the guy that gave us Equilibrium. So I'll always kind of hold him up on my shoulder just for that movie alone. And if you haven't seen Equilibrium with Christian Bale, it's so awesome. And it's such a great action sci-fi piece in the early 2000s, because I think it came out in 2001. So damn cool movie. Beekeeper, not as cool, but still an entertaining watch in the end. Next up is a film that I missed at the Vancouver International Film Festival this year, but I heard buzz about it all over the festival, and I'm really happy that now through Mongrel Media, I was able to check it out. It is released by Sony Pictures Classic. It's called The Teacher's Lounge, a German film, and it's done by a writer-director named Ilker Katak, who I don't really know his work a lot, but I know the lead actor is Leonie Benesch from Michael Haneke's The White Ribbon, among other great things. I think she was also in the Round the World in 80 Days with David Tennant. That's such a fun little series too, and she's just really great. I really like her style. But I mean, this movie features Leonie as a teacher that one of her students is accused of stealing. So in her noble effort to get to the bottom of who stole this money, that is, the accusations are being thrown around, and to absolve her student of the guilt, ends up creating a chain reaction that just spins wildly out of control and starts to bring her morals into question, whether what she was doing in the first place was right at all. And just a really interesting film. And it just, at the end of it all, we just feel like teachers are treated like crap, especially in this day and age. I mean, it's always been a thing that teachers are treated like crap, but now more than ever, we have parents coming for teachers' necks and stuff like that. So this movie deals with a lot of the parental interactions, with the red tape of the school board and everything, and how everything has to be dealt with. And I think it's a really fascinating film at its heart. I really also felt that there's a lot of subtleties at play in this story that are very pertinent to our world now. And yeah, this is one of those movies that resonated with me, and I thought about it for days after. So I believe it is Germany's official submission for the Academy Awards. So hopefully it ends up in that prestigious top 5, because it really does deserve it. All right, next up is the sci-fi thriller. Well, I would say it's not science fiction. It's science fact thriller. It's called ISS. Given what I said, this is it's a thriller that takes place in space on the International Space Station, given that it's called ISS. But it's directed by a filmmaker, an acclaimed filmmaker named Gabriella Cowperthwaite, whose first film is the documentary Blackfish, about killer whales, a really great film. And then her second film was a drama called Our Friend, starring Casey Affleck, Jason Segel, and Dakota Johnson, and featuring a really phenomenal Jason Segel performance, like a really good one. So this is her next one, and she went to space to do this? Or she takes her story into space. Let's just say that she didn't go into space. But I really wonder a lot about the construction of this film, because it does feel so damn authentic with all of the zero grav stuff, and even the look of the ISS itself. Like, it really feels so real to me in the way that they constructed it. But the film stars Ariana DeBose, who is kind of more in the news, the pop culture news lately, over her annoyance at the Critics' Choice Awards being called a fake singer. She does have a really good voice from what I've heard, so she's not faking it. But she's basically your lead. You have John Gallagher Jr. in this one from Hush and 10 Cloverfield Lane, Chris Messina, who turned in an incredible supporting performance last year with Air, and Pilou Asbæk, who is usually your bad guy. Like, he plays a bad guy really well. He's done it in multiple action movies, including Hidden Strike recently. I think he was the bad guy in with Jackie Chan and John Cena. He was a badass in Game of Thrones, that cut out the tongues of all of his crew members. Like, the guy plays some really interesting roles, but he plays a Russian in this one, so he's not channeling into his Danish background at all for this. But it's a solid movie. It's a real pressure cooker of a movie, and it basically, it deals with an American crew and a Russian crew on the International Space Station when war breaks out between U.S. and Russia on Earth, causing their governments to ask each side of the crew to take over the ISS by whatever means necessary. Solid, really well shot. The tension is all there. Nick Remy Matthews is the guy that shoots this one. He did a Hotel Mumbai, which is a really solid thriller based on a true story.
I highly recommend it. It came out from VVS about 4 or 5 years ago. Solid film. And it's honestly the kind of movie that could really mess with your mind, especially with Russia entering the second year of war with Ukraine and all of the threatening motions towards the UN and Western countries and everything. You just kind of worry about stuff like this. So it just makes it all that much more plausible. But a solid film, did terribly at the box office, but I don't think it was really advertised that well. I think Elevation did the releasing out here in Canada. I got emails about it, didn't really see a lot about it as far as commercial wise, and I don't know how well it was distributed in the States. So who knows, but it's definitely worth checking out. Next film is Four Daughters. This is the official submission by Tunisia, I believe, for the documentary category and for foreign film category. And this is kind of an interesting documentary. It tells the story of a Tunisian woman who has four daughters and tries to rebel where she can in a country that is very, very much led and oppressed by the patriarchy. And it's an interesting way to tackle the subject because two of the daughters in the interview portion of this process and the actual body of the film are actresses, because the two oldest daughters are basically imprisoned for terrorism and unavailable, basically taken away from this mother. She has no contact with them anymore. But using these two actors and her two other daughters that are still with her, they kind of reenact her life and her situations and what caused the older two daughters to kind of fall into the system of being indoctrinated with the terrorist beliefs, and how that almost trickled down to the younger ones as well. I think it's such a fascinating look, and with the patriarchy fully on display here. But there's a lot of themes at play here. I mean, obviously sisterhood and motherhood, but also the rebellion that exists in between both of those beings. It gives you a lot to think about after those credits roll. And yeah, I just really thought that it connects the filmmaker to her subject more than a linear documentary would have done it. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I don't think it's going to get a lot of push if it does get the nomination. Like, I do think it's one of the weaker ones in that category, but I do see it actually getting a nomination. All right, let's hit up some television. So I'm a huge fan of Playtone and Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg's war shows like Band of Brothers and The Pacific, which both aired on HBO in the early to mid 2000s. But it's been a while since we've got anything in the World War II vein from Hanks and Spielberg. But now with Masters of the Air debuting on Apple TV, not HBO this time, we do have some really great war stories to be told in this one, this time from the Air Force side of things. Austin Butler stars in this one, capitalizing on the Academy Award nomination for Elvis, and he's a really hot star right now. We should have already gotten Bike Riders at the beginning of December, and I should have already been praising that movie big time. But Dune is in about a month and a bit, so he's going to be hot on the skillet again. It also has Callum Turner, who is in the news right now as being Dua Lipa's new boyfriend and being the envy of many dudes across the planet. You may know him from Fantastic Beasts. I first saw him in Green Room from Jeremy Saulnier. Speaking of which, where the fuck is a new Jeremy Saulnier movie at this point? Sorry, I just had to break a little bit there. But Callum Turner is on the rise for sure, and they're both really, really solid in this show. I really dug it, and I didn't even know this going into it, and all of a sudden he appeared on screen. Barry Keoghan's in this show, playing an American pilot. So, yeah, the rise and the continued steady baseline of the great Barry Keoghan continues in this show. So I'm super psyched about it. I think there's 9 episodes total. Because it's Apple TV, it'll release slowly over the next handful of weeks. And it comes from show creator John Orloff, who's the showrunner on this one, who has done many, many different things, including Band of Brothers and Pacific. But he also wrote the Owl movie for Zack Snyder, the Legends of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole. He wrote that movie, which honestly, if we want to continue Schneider's stories, that's the series he should continue. I thought his Owl movies were really, really great. So him and Deborah should maybe revisit that and not continue down this Rebel Moon path that none of us want. Let's be honest here. Like, if you're propping this movie up, why? Anyway, that's enough about my Rebel Moon stuff. I'm really fascinated by Masters of the Air. I think it's really solid. At this point, it is the most expensive series ever made at $250 million to make this series. It was originally in development with HBO, like The Pacific and Band of Brothers were, but it did shift over to Apple TV, and it did take a decade for this one to come to fruition. So, the fact that it's been such a long time between this and the Pacific, maybe it wasn't supposed to be so long, but we got it now and it's awesome. Speaking of more true story television, let's talk about Griselda. This stars Sofia Vergara and is the bio series about Griselda Blanco, who is the cocaine godmother and just a ruthless human being. I mean, if you've been following any of the Cocaine Cowboy movies, the documentaries that came out in the 2000s, I believe she's the subject of the second film, and just a horrifying individual, and one that even scared Pablo Escobar. If you scare him, like, dude, like that's some epic stature there. But I think it's really cool to see Sofia in a role like this, because I only know her from comedy. I can't think of a single dramatic thing that I've watched her in. I mean, to me, she's Gloria from Modern Family, and I think she did a really terrible comedy with Reese Witherspoon called Hot Pursuit. I don't really know much of her beyond that, but I really like Sofia Vergara. Like, I dig her stuff. So to see her do this dramatic stuff under a bit of makeup to give her the Griselda look, though she's far too beautiful to be a real good Griselda Blanco. I kind of digress. It also has Vanessa Ferlito playing her friend in this one that pops up in the first episode. I feel like I haven't seen Vanessa Ferlito in a long time. I know she was a series regular on NCIS New Orleans and did a lot of television. But for me, when she pops up, I think Death Proof right away. So I was like, oh shit, it's Vanessa Ferlito from Death Proof. And Death Proof was 2007, so maybe I need a new base as a reference. But it was really cool to see her pop up in this one. And it's also created by a good stock when it comes to stories like this, when it comes to drug running stories and those kind of vicious stories, because it comes from Carlo Bernard and Doug Miro, who are the creators behind Narcos. So them pivoting to do this show about Griselda Blanco, it kind of actually makes sense. So we're going to go Narcos, and then we're going to go Narcos Mexico. And let's get more focused. Okay, let's pick somebody as a giant kingpin, Griselda Blanco. Done. It's really interesting, about a week and a couple days before this series launches, because it doesn't launch until today, the day that I'm releasing this video, Sofia Vergara is being sued by Griselda Blanco's son because they didn't allow the rights to this story to be used. And it's like, okay, so we're going to try to mine this show for money a week before it came out, when we know the production of this one had to have been a long time ago, because we've gone through a whole writer's strike and an actor's strike that shut everything down. So we know that the show had to have been done before. So you waited till now. I don't know. There's something really shitty about that. And the fact that her son's name is Michael Corleone tickles me to no end. So Michael Corleone Blanco is suing Sofia Vergara right now. Unsure of where that case is right now. Definitely not into court proceedings at this point, because it was just kind of filed. So we'll see how this goes. Netflix has made no bones about taking this off their schedule at all. So as far as I'm seeing, still going forward. All right, so let's talk about some of the geek outs, some things that I've received that I bought for myself. A couple of these other ones I got for Christmas that I wanted to show off because I'm a freaking nerd. So the first one is Alexander Payne's The Descendants, the Blu-ray DVD combo pack. George Clooney, Shailene Woodley, written by Alexander Payne, Nat Faxon, and Jim Rash. They actually won the Academy Award for this one. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards that year, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, like I said, which it won. George Clooney was nominated, and I forget, I might be editing, was the 5th one. But it's a really, really, really solid movie. This is the first time I ever saw Shailene Woodley in a movie. I think that this is kind of the mark to hold her up to, because she's been of varying degrees since this movie, in my opinion. But there's no better Clooney than Clooney doing comedy where he's playing a character that is out of his element. And essentially, I mean, this movie has him taking his girls on a vacation after an accident involving his wife, and so he's trying to connect with his kids, but as well as kind of distance themselves from the accident that their mother had. And I mean, I love Alexander Payne. I don't think that there's an Alexander Payne movie that I hate out there. And even looking at Downsizing, I don't hate that movie. I think it was an ambitious movie that in some ways didn't exactly work. But there's something about his storytelling and his characters that always grip me. And with The Holdovers being like one of my most recommended movies in the last 3 months, the fact that I wanted to pick up Descendants, a movie that I didn't have in my collection yet, was kind of fitting. And I mean, it's pretty cheap now. I found it for like $12. So I'd say it's a solid pickup. Oh, I also have to mention that this film was shot by Phaedon Papamichael, which is a great name. It's Phedon. I mean, a cinematographer that's done incredible work, lots of work, even work with Alexander Payne before, like Nebraska and everything. But that year, it was 2011 that the Descendants came out. He actually worked with Clooney twice in that year, because he also shot The Ides of March, which not only stars George Clooney, but was also directed by him as well. So I thought that was a neat connection. Second up on my Geek House this week is another addition to my Criterion collection. And this is part of my pursuit of the first 100, being that this is Alfred Hitchcock's Lady Vanishes, which is number 3 in the collection. So it goes The Grand Illusion, which is out of print and not on Blu-ray yet. Seven Samurai, which I own, and now The Lady Vanishes. This was 3 years after he released 39 Steps in 1936, and then he released Sabotage in 1938, which were 2 of his bigger films in his earlier career. I just love to see his gradual trajectory of his career, and it's very much on display in The Lady Vanishes. This one's known for being Truffaut's favorite of Hitchcock's films, which is fascinating once you get to the documentary Hitchcock-Truffaut, A Meeting of the Two Brilliant Minds. Highly recommended as a documentary. It was also Orson Welles' obsession when it came out. He watched it 11 times. He just kept asking it to rerun and everything. Like, he was really obsessed with this movie. So definitely had an influential effect on both of those filmmakers, which is fascinating when you figure out when you feel the stature of who Orson Welles was as a filmmaker. I mean, he's got the AFI #1 film of all time with Citizen Kane, which I don't know if that's ever going to change. I don't know if it'll change in my lifetime. It is a phenomenal film. Maybe it's not my #1 of all time, but I can definitely agree with it being in that position. And then Truffaut. I mean, Francois Truffaut made some of the most incredible films, the most influential films of all time. And to know that Hitchcock was a big part of his inspiration as well is just an interesting thing to bring out. But it's also on the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die list, which is a great book. Every year there's a revised edition, and I know The Lady Vanishes is one that's never going to fall out of that book. So definitely worth checking out. And if you're a Criterion collector, it's got a pretty good price point. It was only like $38.99 or something like that. Not through Criterion, because their shipping fees to Canada are ridiculous. I would go through like eBay on that one. And the final one for this week is a Christmas present that I got, and I loved it because I was marveling over it when I saw him at Walmart, and I'm not in any kind of physical disc partnership with Disney anymore. So the fact that they weren't going to send me WandaVision complete series on Blu-ray was upsetting. I got it for Christmas in a beautiful, beautiful steelbook, and I am such a nerd for all of these steelbook editions. And but now to get like the Twin Peaks of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a steelbook Blu-ray, yeah, I definitely geeked out about it and probably squealed in happiness as soon as I got it. Sorry, it's not just Blu-ray; it's 4K as well. So it definitely deserving to be on my shelf, and one that I really cherish in my steelbook collection. Elizabeth Olsen is so damn great in this series. I love her progression as Wanda, which it makes it all that much more upsetting with the way that progress was treated to make her the villain in Multiverse of Madness, the second Doctor Strange movie. Still rubs me the wrong way. I still feel like a lot of the good stuff they did in WandaVision was immediately dispelled with that movie. So I almost like feel like, can we just have WandaVision as just this nice standalone, because I would enjoy that much, much more. But I also love all of the change in the sitcom style of all the beginning credits and how they move through each decade. I really dig on that. And to have all the episodes and compile all of those, it's really a really neat Easter egg to kind of pull out. And I cannot finish this without talking about Catherine Hahn, who I absolutely adore, playing Agatha in this one. And just, I mean, even when you're unsure about her character in the beginning to the last time you see her in the series, she is just so much fun. And I'm really, really looking forward to the Agatha, the Coven of Chaos, or whatever it's going to be called. I'm looking forward to that one. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the fact that Aubrey Plaza is in it. I mean, you got Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn in the same project together. Yeah, that's gold to me. That's going to be fun. All right, so that is it for me this week. A little more abbreviated episode as I didn't have as much. Next week, I'm really, really, really excited because the wife and I finally in Penticton get to check out Poor Things. I can finally see the new Yorgos Lanthimos film. For those who don't know this about me, he is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, not just of modern times, but of all time. Just the sheer risks that the man takes and the ability to make you squirm in your seat just seems to delight him. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited about great performances from Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, and Willem Dafoe, as well as Rami Youssef's in this one. Like, there's just a lot going on in this that I'm very excited about. So that's my tease for next week. I'm really excited to finally check out Poor Things, especially like if I didn't see this movie before the Academy Awards, I'd be pissed. Like, there's just no other way around it. But that is it for me. I am on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads at The Stevel Dead. My website, stevestebbing.ca. Of course, my YouTube channel is just under my name, Steve Stebbing. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends to do that too. And you can also find these videos on shiftheads.ca. You can also find Shift Heads on Facebook. You can like that group. There's over 3,000 members in that group. As well, my Facebook page is on there as well, Steve Stebbing. It's got a little cartoon picture of me looking like Ash with the chainsaw hand. Thanks to a friend of mine, Trevor Metz, for making that for me years and years ago. God, when I first started podcasting, we got that picture made. So it's an old picture by now at this point, but it still rocks. Thank you, everybody, for checking out this episode, and I'll see you next week.